Hello there, I'm History of the Flash, but you can call me JD.
Ahoy and Comic Hunter, also known as just Hunter.
I'm Drew, also known as Drew Comic. Woo!
And we're joined this week by writer of The Flash, co-writer of Flashpoint Beyond, and many other things he's written in his career, Jeremy Adams. Jeremy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here.
You're our second Flash writer on the show. We had Joshua Williamson on near the end of his Rebirth run, so we got to keep the streak going here.
Yeah.
Flash writers.
Williamson's the one that I'm like constantly like sending notes like, so where did you leave this character? Or where did you leave, like, because when I got the Flash, it was like, I mean, I knew a lot, but it's so deep. The
700 issues, 700 plus.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, and also DC's rebooted like 100 times. So I'm like,
wow,
where's what? I don't know,
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
He's
technically we've had all Flash creators on. We've had Mark Waid on the show as well.
Nice.
We've had Scott Collins on the show. We've had a good streak of Flash writers, and as a mega Flash fan, I'm cool with it. I just say we keep it rolling.
So yeah, thanks for joining us here. We start off these interviews kind of the same way when we have someone on for the first time, and we're asking your origin story. How did you get to where you are now, writing the Flash?
Oh man. So I mean, it's a long involved story. It depends on which version of the story you want.
Yeah.
But the comic book version is I have been making, my career is in writing for movies and television, mostly Warner Brothers Animation, and generally that and Lego. And then I did a stint on Supernatural, which was really great. But I grew up with comic books. My dad had drawn a couple of comic books when I was a kid. I didn't know he hadn't done very many. And then I subsequently found out he did 5 or 6 issues of Captain Atom in the 80s, but like Ghosts and Dr. 13. So I was always reading comics as a little kid. And then when my parents got divorced, that was a way to kind of connect. Anyways, Warner Brothers Animation, by the way, this is about the insanity of energy that I'm going to be projecting on you guys.
I love it.
That's great. So Warner Brothers Animation is kind of known for doing really faithful adaptations and interpretations of DC Comics. And so all I know is I had been trying to break into comic books my entire life and gotten close a couple of times. But then what happened was Dan Didio called over to Warner Brothers and said, I want a list of your best animation writers. And somehow some fool put me on that list. And so we go to the DC Comics office, which is, I don't think they moved out of it, but it's amazing. You walk in and it's just like, there are all the lanterns and, giant, like, it's just really like nerdy me is just like, just calm down, freak out, like, don't lose your mind.
What year was this? This
is about maybe 6 months before the pandemic. So,
oh wow,
like
2019,
2.5, 3 years ago. Time is really weird now, right?
Yeah.
And so we're sitting at this table and Dan Didio comes in and he starts telling us about 5G and he's got all this stuff. And I'm just like, and he's like the music man, he's like the guy who's like, oh, we got trouble. Oh, right here. And he's like telling us, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this sounds insane. And, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, just shut up, Jeremy, whatever they want you to do, I am in. And I was super excited. They sent us away to do some pitches. And I remember because my friend Tim Sheridan and my friend Eric Crosco writes on Batman Unburied, that Spotify show. Oh, and Tim was writing Teen Titans Academy, and he also is writing Flashpoint Beyond thing. And I remember going to a bar afterwards and seeing them there. And he's like, well, what do you think, Jeremy? Should we do this? And I was like, someone asked you if you're a god. You say yes. Like, what do you mean we do this? Like, I don't understand how this is a question. So we all started sending pitches in, and then Didio left, Bob Harris left, the company went through a changeover, and I was this close. And supposedly I was still on tap to do the backup for Superman World at War with the Black Racer. It was like supposed to happen, but I hadn't really heard anything. So this list was still there. And Mike Cotton, who was the editor, he was like, I got this list. He talked to Tim Sheridan. He's like, I got these people on the list. And Tim's like, Jeremy, you got to get Jeremy. And so he called me and he's like, would you do anything with Shazam DC 1 million? I'm like, would I? And that was the first script I handed in. And I kept thinking, like, I know nothing. You know, the craft of comic books is a totally different craft. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Learning page turns and stuff. I mean, I think I intuitively knew because my wife's annoyed at all the long boxes I have. Like it's like I've read forever, so I kind of knew. But you can tell, especially in the DC 1 million, the first, it's just very word heavy. And I was kind of trying to figure out what's what. And I did it, and it evidently it was fairly successful.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of internal, I don't know if Future State was successful, but I just know that internally they were like, hey, this is great. Jeremy didn't give us much flack, and he did the thing.
Mm.
And so Cotton came to me and he said, he's like, do you have any ideas for the Flash? And I'm like, do I have ideas?
The most beautiful
It was
question.
it was that casual. It was that casual. I think
Oh man.
I think they were just like, we don't know what to do. I think there was this kind of vibe like, we don't know what to do with the Flash. And I'm going,
Wow.
I've got 6 billion ideas. Like, which one do you want? And they're like, we'll take the Quantum Leap one. I'm like, great, let's do Quantum Leap. Let's do it.
That's so cool.
And but that was also a way for me to like kind of figure out Wally for myself.
Mhm.
And it was a way to kind of like jump into the different Flash family and kind of just feel out what I wanted to do and plant seeds. And I knew that I was headed toward the Heroes in Crisis moment, because I always felt like that was the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
And I was just like, that's not, I love Tom King. I love all that stuff. I'm just saying, for me, like I want my superheroes, like for me to write this guy and love this guy, I can't have him be a murderer. So it was like, I'm going to fix this now, and I knew that Williamson had like a panel. It was like, Reverse Flash was like, I was here. Yeah. And I was like, no, we need to be explicit, and I said, I was like, no, Wally has to save everybody. And they're like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, he's got to save everybody. I got this whole plan. He's going to jump into Barry's body at the same time. And Barry's going to be like, Wally's going to be like, I know where I am. And he's going to do this thing. And they're like, nope. And I'm like,
Oh.
So they said, but we can give you Roy. You can have Roy. You can have a moment with Roy. So it's like, okay. So I did that. And obviously for me, it's like a dream come true. I did with all these different artists.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Maguire, like, are you kidding me? Like, Justice League International was my everything. So the fact that like I got to do a segment, like a Super Friends segment with Kevin Maguire, was amazing. And so at that point, I don't know, I just kept thinking they're going to fire me any minute. And then I kept thinking they haven't fired me, so I'm going to not let them ever let me go.
Nice.
And then I just kept like, especially in my early interviews, it was always like, listen, as long as I'm writing Wally, he's not gonna die, but listen, if I get off this book, I don't know, it was kind of like a weird threat.
It was like a reverse hostage situation. Like, I don't want to let him go.
I don't want the next writer to kill him, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen. So you should buy my book, and so the Flash, from what I hear, though, you never know, it's like it's been steady and it's like slightly gone up, but it hasn't had the attrition that a lot of the books have had. So I think they're very happy. They're like, oh, this is steady. We don't really have to mess with it. But I want people, and this is the other thing. It's like, people didn't know Wally's back. People still don't know Wally's back.
Right.
In my comment section all the time, I get, wait, Wally's back in the book? And I have to tell people like, Flash 768, dude. Like, it's
like,
there. Read it.
We're on our second year here. Yeah.
And people
all
have been
the time.
begging to get him back. Like, people are like, when's Wally coming back? When's he back? Like, he's back. Like, he's in the title.
And I made a full post on that. Like, what more do you need to see? Like, everything we've asked for years since. I mean, 2016 is like the beginning of it with DC Rebirth 1, but really, I've been asking for it since the New 52. Like,
Flashpoint.
This is what we want, people. Buy it.
Right.
It's probably the costume at this point. Like, people probably are so used to that costume.
That's what's so funny. It's like, I don't have an opinion on the costume.
I support the full cow.
So that's why there was that moment in like the last issue where people were kind of giving me flack, like, why does Wally have stealth suits? And I was like, listen, I really wanted it to be a closet of like all his costumes.
That's awesome.
So that it's
Batcave
like
style.
Any given day he could be like, I like this one, or whatever. Because I don't really have druthers. And I'm also still new enough that I don't want to make too many waves. you know?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So but I've had a lot of fun. I mean, the way that I approach it is kind of like TV series wise. It's like I will do like a 3-issue arc, and then I'll do kind of like single fun issues, and then back to a 3-issue arc. And that was working up until Gem Worlds, and then they were like, hey, we need you to do War for Earth 3, which was something that they had asked me about long time before, but then suddenly I wasn't writing it, and then suddenly I was writing it. I was like, oh, okay. And
Yeah,
it was
the solicitation got confusing there, whether or not you were doing the Flash issue.
yeah, it was confusing for me too. And also, like, it was one of those things where, you know, sometimes they'll just do the covers, and I don't necessarily have any say in the covers. And I was like, oh, so Mirror Master's in this? They're like, oh, not necessarily. And I was like, no, it's on the cover. That drives me crazy as a comic fan. Like, it drives me crazy. That's my internal battle. And I'm like, well, he's in it now. I got to figure out how to put Mirror, you know. And so we did that, and Tim was doing Titans Academy, and then I got a couple issues, you know. And again, it was like I did, you know, the issues with Ace, and then it's right into the Search for Barry Allen, and then they wanted me to extend that. But I have so many loose threads in my own book too. I'm like, how do I do this? You know, because it's monthly, so it's like,
I wish it was bi-weekly again. That was the great time as a Flash fan. It was so fun.
It was so great.
Me too.
So
I agree.
So I got to imagine, I mean, you already talked about sales. I got to imagine with the Dark Crisis tie-in, sales got to boost to some degree, just because people are like, you know, going to jump on because of, you know, the Road to Dark Crisis, and they see the checklist, like, all right, I need to read Search for Barry Allen. That panel that you posted got me 10,000 likes. I got to imagine that means 10,000 people are enjoying it. So
I hope so. It was different too, because marketing started letting me post some panels, you know, and
that's great.
I think that generated some excitement. And I got to tell you, like, I didn't even post my favorite panel from the next issue. Like, there's like a panel that I'm like, ooh, I'm like really excited about. And then Amanke has been doing an incredible job. And the next 3 issues I always feel like, you know, it's such a visual medium. And I think sometimes writers get kind of, they get, you know, maybe too much over focused sometimes. Like, I hope I'm a good writer. I never know. But it's like, I also want these artists, because it's so visual. My goal is to give them a script and have them go, oh my gosh, that was so fun. Or, oh, I can't wait to draw that. Because if they're invested and they're excited about drawing it, then, you know, that's everything. And so you see, there's a panel of like the, I'm trying to figure out what not to say, but like there's the race car, and it has the lightning bolt on it and stuff. And like, I think that was the first panel that Amanke sent back, and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. He's really invested and he's excited about it. And so we have 3 issues of like some real bananas stuff. And then I have written an issue that comes place right after Dark Crisis, which I'm more than excited, because Fernando was like, can we just do this? Like, because it's really lunatic. And but yeah, like a few months ago, in my bid to try to like convince them to let me stay on forever, I sent them like a 3-year outline. I was like, here,
wow,
this is what I want to do for every issue. Here's the log line. Here's what the covers should look like. I don't think they're going to listen to me, but still, you know, I think it's this kind of insane moment where like, okay, he's crazy. Like, you know, but if we, you know, if we switch, you know, who's going to guarantee that this guy has got this weird plan, you know? So I have some cool Flash stuff planned for January. Right.
Wow. I'm probably for the summer too.
I'm already writing for like, you know, March of next year.
2023.
Almost a year.
Yeah, I know, it's stupid.
That's a good thing. It's better to be on track than.
Well, it is, but also there's a lot of stuff happening, right? So there's stuff happening in the DC universe, Discovery Plus, and like I don't know how that shakes out. And I'm just trying to be nimble and like, okay, what can I do? What can I help with? You know, and I've been wanting to be in this position forever, that I'm like, I'll write anything else. Here's 12 pitches for other books, but also like if you want to do the miniseries, I'm your guy. Like whatever it is, I'm ready. You know.
Was Flash your first like choice? Like, is that what the the first one you wanted to
That
do,
was
or
the
was
first
there?
one they offered me. So,
If you could
so
have any character, what would you pick?
that's, I mean, probably like full disclosure, like I'm a big Ted Cord Blue Beetle guy.
Nice.
That was a big thing for me growing up, and I love Ditko, and that was one of the first books I remember getting. I know everybody says the Bat Family. I do like the Bat Family. I was a big Robin Year One, Tim Drake, Chuck Dixon run. When Dixon was running the Bat Group, I was like really invested.
The best.
Like when it was Nightwing and Robin, and they were dipping into each other all the time.
So good.
It was so good. And then it was like Batman Fugitive, Bruce Wayne Murderer, and all that.
Yep.
That was really cool to me. But I'm trying to think of other characters because I like so much. The Justice League International was a big deal. Obviously, you can tell that my humor is kind of in that vein, kind of snarky, at least in the Flash so far. I think what I've tried to do with the Flash too is there are a lot of serious adult books, and I'm trying to make a book that it's still okay to read to my 9-year-old. You know, it's still fun. It's something that, because I know a lot of people that work at comics stores, and they're just like, I don't know what to give young readers. You know, I don't know what to start them out on. Now I want Flash to be that kind of like, you can jump in. It's more Silver Age than anything. It's like, it's a lot of adventure. It's a lot of craziness. And it's also me like getting to explore DC Universe. You know, like it's like, oh, and no one's stopping me. Like, it's like, I'm going to Gem World. I'm fighting Eclipso, and I'm expecting something like, you can't do that. I'm like, no, okay, no one's saying no. Okay, great. Like, you know, like that's so much of my process of like sending it in and going, I wonder if this is the one. I wonder if this is the one.
To say no to.
Yeah, totally.
That's interesting. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did any of your plans for the Flash change after the announcement, or maybe you were told beforehand of Death of the Justice League and Dark Crisis?
Yeah, I mean, it changed in so much that like I have some other threads that I've obviously been building. And I'll just, some of them is the fact that Mr. Terrific, Wally's working for Terrific Tech, right? And his team there, and we haven't spent that much time on it because it's nobody's fault. It's just the fault that it's like, we need to sell this thing more, because then I feel like they would give it to me twice a month and it'd be easier to tell the story.
I wish.
But people like forget about it. It's like, he's there and they're building something, and they're kind of building something that has to do with the thread later on down the line. And then we have Wolf at Iron Heights and what's going on there. And then we have there's a couple other like little things that I did during the 768 run, which was like on 769, you know, like Wally whispers something to Gold Beetle. I was like, what is that? I know what that is. I just wish everybody else did at this point. You know, the one that drives me absolutely crazy is I was gonna have Linda talk to Wally earlier about her powers.
Oh, it's been agonizing waiting.
It's been agonizing for me. so I mean, just to let you know, like I keep going like, okay, this is gonna be the issue, and then there'll be like just kind of like, okay, we're doing this crossover and stuff, and I'm like, okay, because I you know, it's like I want to have a discussion here, you know, and I'm not saying I don't think we have to wait that much longer, but
good to hear.
You know, that stuff I wanted. It always moves and flows, you know. I knew Jay was going to get his powers back, but there's some other stuff like in that same run, the Flash Planet. I know what that is. I know it's not the exact one from DC 1 million. It's kind of a proto Flash Planet, and I kind of know what that looks like too. And so I have a lot of these weirdo plans, but we'll see. You know.
It's like we said, it's the perfect, you know, reverse hostage. Like, you know, just let me keep writing. We get to see some more ideas. I'll give you a little bit more.
Totally. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I mean, it's as a writer, it's wildly addictive. It feels like what it must be to be a stage actor versus TV or movies, because when I do animated movies, I won't see the result of that for almost 2 years later.
Right,
and so suddenly I'm doing interviews on something that I did 2 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, I did this and I did this. And then with TV, like live action TV, there was a shorter period of time. It's like you write it and then a couple months later it'll be done. But comic books, I mean, obviously I'm ahead of what I should be, but that's because I'm a deranged puppy on speed. But there's also like, oh, you wrote this thing, and immediately artists are sending you pages back, and then suddenly you're getting inks and colors, and you're like, this is
gonna be crazy.
It's really, really, really amazing and addictive. And then you meet people like Jeff, like I'm working with Jeff on Flashpoint Beyond, and you just start like hearing different people's approach to it. So I don't imagine that my stuff is gonna look the same today than 5 years from now, So
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So you're very high energy, and I think you take that approach to the Flash. I mean, I think that's fair to say.
Sure.
And it's clearly evident in the way you write Wally West. He's even in the last issue where him and Ace are going around, and Ace is like, they're like the odd couple. It's like
right.
Ace is like, all right, take it down a notch, guy, and Wally's like, listen, I'm having fun out here. He's like, I don't know how long I got. All right, I'm living my best life. So
yeah, so, and you know what? Honestly, that's also intentional, just in terms of like. I don't think Wally's like that all the time. I just think Wally's been through such extreme trauma and stuff. There's a certain recalibration, and also I think I'm having a slightly different characterization of Ace a little bit, and I enjoy Wally being silly, but I know with my cousins and people that I grew up with, I'm 1,000% sillier. I'm 1,000% more of a weirdo. Like, you're kind of stuck in that age. Like when you get with your brothers and sisters, you're pushing each other's buttons. And if they do have this long history now, that's how it feels like to me. It's like he's just a little sillier and a little like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But if it came to it, I think Wally would have it handled,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's obviously been your approach to Wally. Now, you've been one of the few writers to dare touch, Jai and Irie, of like how it can be tough to write kids in a superhero book, but obviously having young daughters of your own, I mean, I think that has helped, balance your approach, right? That's been what you've based Jai and Irie off of.
Yeah, it's been a huge part of it. I think I really fell in love with it because my daughter wrote the issue where they went to the daddy-daughter dance with me, and that was like that was a cool moment to see my daughter like light up about this other little girl. And I, obviously I'm a dad, so that becomes a little easier. I'm also a product of the 80s. So it's like Monster Squad and Goonies and all that stuff. It's like really important to me. And then it falls into the place that, like, for whatever reason, DC right now doesn't have really young superheroes. And I'm just like, they've aged up everybody.
That's
what
made the 90s great, Young Justice and all
right.
that stuff.
Oh, right. I mean, literally Young Justice. I mean, when Jeff was writing Young Justice, there was this issue where like they stole the Batmobile and they wrecked it.
Teen Titans 2003.
Yeah, Teen Titans. Thank you. Teen Titans. Even though I keep getting them confused because they were like the same lineup.
They're back-to-back runs. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, Batman's like, why is my car in San Francisco or whatever? And I was like, that is hilarious, And I kind of also morphing, obviously the Flash is becoming this. It is a family, and so you can kind of see how I'm kind of like sifting through just Wally. And then it's like Wally and his family, then Wally and Ace, and then we're bringing in more of the family, and because it is almost like if there's a yin yang symbol, it's like there's the Bat family, and then there's the light side, which is like Wally's family. And I think that Flash is so overpowered. If we like think of it critically, I have a scene where Mr. Terrific when the spear lands, that the glaive that has Calypso in it, and he's being taken over, and he's just like, you are probably the most powerful person on the planet. And I really do believe that, because if you can just go back in time and go see light and all that stuff, it's like, what's really going to stop you except you? And so having a family that can do that is really exciting. There's almost like a Fantastic Four element to it.
Well, that's exactly what that's one of our questions literally written on the docket here. Is,
you got to stop me because I'll ramble, man.
No,
we appreciate it.
We all caught that.
On YouTube, it says Jeremy Adams interview, not us three interview. They listen to us all the time every week. They get all of us. We get 1 hour views. So Fantastic Four is obviously when Linda first got her powers, I was like, all right, it's a one-off thing. They did it with Iris in the New 52, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the next issue, I'm like, okay, wait, maybe this is not a one-off thing. This might be more. And now it's gone on a few issues. Obviously, maybe not your choice. Like, obviously, you haven't been able to deal with it yet. But it's like, it's got my mind working. It's got the gears turning, and it's like, wait, could this be a Fantastic Four book with the two kids and Linda and Wally? And it's like, whoa, that could really work for Flash.
I think it would be really cool. I'm not saying that's what's happening. Obviously I pushed Linda. I was kind of like, one of the things that, again, no one's stopping me, so I don't know what to tell you. Like, I was just like, there's a lot of superhero girlfriends that happen to be reporters.
Oh, making her an author so much better. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I really, it's that Romancing the Stone, Kathleen Turner thing, where it's like, oh, she's a writer that's natural, and I think it could be really fun. And the annual is it's funny for the preview, what they put for the blurb really didn't have anything to do with it. But it's really, we're going to get the chance, you heard it here first, we're going to get a chance to like read an abbreviated version of Linda's novel, which I think will be really fun. And that's just going to be fun. And I think that's just going to be a part of their life from going forward a little bit, because it's hard. There's so many characters in the Flash family, and trying to balance them all out and give everybody time, and giving everybody moments. With Jay getting the name Surged from the Speed Force Surge, and to rectify that situation too. Again, I'm a very hopeful guy, so it was really fun to be able to do that and have that connection. And the Gem World one was supposed to go another issue, so everything was abbreviated a little bit for my taste. But yeah, it's super fun to be able to and the stupid little jokes, like Ira cannot figure out her code name, and she won't for a long time.
We've been calling her Irie Pulse since like 2019, since 2009 rather, since Flash Rebirth. So
I mean, that's the one character too that, like, I know everybody's itching. It's like Bart.
It's another one of our questions on the docket here. You're hitting them all.
Well, my co-writer from the Justice Society of America movie that I did, Megan Fitzmartin, who's been doing
she's doing Young Justice.
Yeah, she's doing Young Justice. So I can't use Bart there, but he will come back soon.
Listen, I was telling everyone in the comments that when they're like, "Where's Bart?" like getting all mad, I'm like, "Whoa! They got him in Young Justice. He probably can't even use him. Like, it's not Jeremy being like, "Oh, I'm not putting in Bart."
Flash family, you're out. Yeah, no, it's none of that. None of that. I mean, it's also, again, it's like, listen, I'm a fan too, so it's hard because I'm a super critical fan on certain things, and then being on the other side of it, you're sitting there going like, you want what you want. And we also have an outlet to be able to tell people what you want. So it's hard because I really want, there's a lot of stories to tell, and I feel like I need more time, so.
Exactly. Makes sense. Kind of going away from the Flash for a second, we'll probably come back, but Flashpoint Beyond, you're also right.
One question.
One
question real quick.
Go ahead.
About characters. Tornado Twins.
Yeah.
You ever see Tornado Twins? I've wanted to see them.
Drew is the only Tornado Twins fan like in existence, by the way. Like, he's been talking about them since like maybe 1958, before he was even born.
I don't have any specific plans. I do feel like that I think there's a place for Barry to have a real conversation with Iris about the fact that his protege is surpassing him in like milestones of life,
as children, right?
I think that's one of the things I found about Wally that I really find kind of attractive, is like, he's the most well-adjusted hero. I mean, definitely sidekick, if not hero. Like, I don't know who else has a family life and kids that seem to be, handling all in the DC universe. There are people like, I put in Maxine Baker and like people like that I'm like, who else is young and I can steal for my own little.
Roy Harper had a daughter, but
I know she grew up, right?
That one.
Yeah.
Superman kind of was in that area.
The Tornado Twins, I've been thinking about nothing specific. So I don't want to burst your bubble, but like that's the fun thing about, to me, like doing that issue where Wally sees his daughter, and that's always something that as a dad, it would be amazing to see if my daughter was doing well in the future and be like, that was a load up, right?
That was great.
So so there's also a feeling to me like, you know, obviously in that I was writing that Gold Beetle and Jay were dating, and you know, Ira's getting engaged, and I was just like, man, I would love to tell a story in that timeline or that era just to see where everybody is. And if I did, then I imagine Tornado Twins would be there probably. That's all I can say. Anyway.
Okay.
Listen, you gave all 4 Tornado Twins fans like some kind of hope. All 10s and 10s of them are very happy.
They're excited. So you're obviously a great storyteller, not just from comics, but even just here on the podcast, just telling how you got these gigs and everything. So Flashpoint Beyond, how did that come to be? Did Jeff approach you, or did
No? Tim and I talk almost like every day.
Nice.
Tim and I came into animation fairly close to the same time. We started working on Justice League Action at the same time. That's how we met each other.
Okay.
Justice League Action and this show called Legend Quest, and so we became friendly. But when the comic book thing happened, we became 2 people on a life raft, you know, and just kind of like trying to figure our way through it, and just asking like, you know, back and forth. And so we developed a really good friendship with that. And so we started talking about ideas, and we started kicking around this really kind of crazy idea that involved Flashpoint, the Flashpoint universe. And then Loki kind of came out, and we're like, crap, this is kind of the idea we wanted to do. But we thought we could change it, and we can kind of do this or this. And then Cotton again, Mike Cotton, who's the editor, said, what if we got Jeff? You know, this is his universe. What if we got Jeff involved? And of course, Tim and I are like, of course, sure. like you can't pull this off. Like, he's running a TV show, like, you know, in movies.
Yeah.
There's no way. And sure enough, he's like, you know, we met at the steakhouse, and you know, this is the thing. I mean, the very candid thing is, like, I've read so much of Jeff's stuff, you know, and so I love so much of Jeff's stuff. And there's so much controversy and weird stuff, and you just don't know. I've met heroes of mine in Hollywood, and it hadn't turned out great. And some it turned out great. And I was really nervous from meeting somebody I really enjoyed their writing. And then it turned out to be like, oh, he is so much in love with comic books that, like, when he sat down, he really put us at ease. The fanboy in me was just like, okay, just don't be an idiot, Jeremy, you know. And then we all just kind of had like a really good collaborative, you know, conversation. And he was really cool. Like, he's super, super cool. And I mean, too cool to be that knowledgeable about comic books is how I grew up. Like, I don't know. And you're too fit too, bro. Like, what's going on? He's the day walker, right? So anyways, we started getting together, and we just kind of hit it off. Like, him and I would sit in a room, and we broke it like a television series, and we would just whiteboard it, and this happens and this happened. No, this happened, and argue and push back. And then, but you know, how much arguing can I do with Jeff Johns when it comes to comic books, right? You know what I mean? Like, because
that's a good sentence.
he's written more than I will think about. Like, when we did a signing at Collector's Paradise, it was like, people would come to this, you know, this giant omnibus. Goosh, could you sign my Flash omnibus? And I'm looking at the thing like, that is bigger in thickness than my head. That's crazy, you know. So what am I really gonna say? But we would. I mean, we got to a point where we'd be really friendly and push back and got some really cool ideas. And I mean, honestly, aside from the art being unbelievable, Zermanico is unbelievable. I am learning so much about comic books in this experience, and especially the way that Jeff writes comics, because everything is not necessarily contained. It means so much more. It has ripple effects that will affect things for years to come. Even if he doesn't write them years to come, he'll get back to it, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff that it's gonna mean. So we've had such an incredible I've enjoyed every moment hanging out and just writing comics and talking comics with Jeff. It's been remarkable. Tim and I are still like, this is so stupid. We should not be in this room.
And there's a comparison to be made between, you know, kind of you and Jeff Flash, in the sense of, like, he followed Mark Waid, who did this long historic run. You're following Joshua Williamson, who did this long historic run. You both started out with a kind of a weird out there arc. Like, you did the Quantum Leap, he did Flash Wonderland, which was, you know,
Yeah.
out there, you know, like
Yeah.
that's it's kind of like an interesting like how you guys both took over the book, you know.
Yeah, it's
And Jeff was relatively unknown in comics when he took over the Flash.
yeah,
You
it's
hadn't written
weird.
much, like that's cool.
It's kind of like I don't know what it is about the Flash that makes it kind of like a fun entry point. I don't know, you know. It's like honestly, I mean, the funny thing too is like I haven't even had my first trade out yet here in America.
It's taken forever. It's terrible. They're killing you.
Terrible. Like I got the French version. It's so beautiful.
And by the way, the American version is not even all your issues. It's other issues too. What?
I know Shinnick and yeah. But I remember going like it's still a pinch me moment, but it is like that weird thing where you're like somebody came up at the signing like, oh Jeremy, I really love the way you write Wally. Sorry, Jeff. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, you know, that's weird.
Feels wrong, right?
And then Mark, he lives like a couple blocks away from me, and I had never met him. And I was sitting there on Twitter, and it was like Mark Waid signing at you know, at the Comic Bug in Santa Monica, and I was like, honey, I gotta go. And I like jumped in the car and I like floored it over there, and then I'm like, I just total nerd. I was like, hi, Mr. Wood. My name is Jeremy Adams. He's like, oh, I love your run. And I was like, okay, you know. And
no, I was supposed to say that to you.
Yeah. And then we had lunch, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is so fantastic. But I could totally see, because I think for many years, I don't think he read The Flash. I think it's, and I could see it. I can see it coming. The day when I'm 95 and they kick me off The Flash, they say, you know, it won't be that, but it's like, it'll be hard, right? To
like an ex-girlfriend, like it's how could you even look?
yeah, that's right. How do you even look? That is the thing.
That's crazy that, you know, to talk to Mark Waid like that. We interviewed Mark on the show, and that was like one of the craziest experiences of my life. And I couldn't even explain it to my friends who don't know comics, because they're like, oh, you talk to a writer? I'm like, no. I talked to Mark Waid.
Yeah,
it's different.
We finished the interview and my jaw was still on the floor, and we were all like in disbelief, like, oh my God, we just did this.
That's a weird function of it's just weird. Like I ended up working with Bruce Timm on a couple things, and it was like I had been told that, you know, that he will hate you and, you know, whatever. And we did Batman Soul of the Dragon, and it was like within an hour, it was like, oh my gosh, we like each other, you know. And that was such an outlier, and it was like, and then you talk to your heroes like J.M. DeMatteis, who's like the most humble man in the world. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. I always just say J.M. from Justice League.
Hunter's known on this show for always pronouncing last names wrong, so you're not alone here.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's a product of just being a comic nerd, right? Like we didn't know how to pronounce Professor Xavier. I always said Xavier. Like that's how I always said it. And then like you don't know until somebody does a live action. You're like, I don't know if that's how you say it.
Well, even Wally's son, I say Jai, you say Jay. Who knows what's the right answer?
I mean, it is probably Jai, but like I always think like what was the other one? I always said Shang-Chi. Like I was like Shang-Chi.
Right, not
you know,
Shang.
And then the movie comes out.
Yeah, they're like Shang-Chi, and it's racist if you say Shang. I'm like, wait, what?
Like, oh man,
I'm like, no, man, I'm working on Mortal Kombat. Shang Tsung is Shang Tsung. It's not Shang Tsung, you know. So it's like you don't know as a comic nerd. It's like we don't know. They put all these crazy names out, and we're just trying to figure it out. There's no pronunciation.
Hunter, you better be listening to this. You have an excuse now every time you pronounce the name wrong. I'm just a comic fan.
We don't know until we see them in a movie or a show or something like that, and then it's corrected for us.
Yeah, that's the same thing with like fantasy. I love fantasy books too, and it's like I don't know how Drizzt Do'Urden's name is pronounced or whatever. Like I don't know. And then with JM though, like I met him, and that was like I was like, oh my gosh, guy did JLA, Craven's Last Hunt. Like he's just done a ton of stuff. And like Mark Waid, it's like he's just done so much.
Master.
And it's crazy.
Yeah. I was gonna ask like what Flash, I mean obviously you've been reading comics for a long time.
Yeah.
What Flash was your, you know, did you read any to prep to take over the book or?
Yeah, I mean I went, it's funny, it's like a combination of Waid and Justice League Unlimited, you know.
Well, that's very clear that like your Wally's very Justice League Unlimited style, which we all love, you know.
Right.
And that's version of Flash outside of comics.
Right. And then like digging into Wade's stuff and John's stuff and just going back to like Silver Age wackiness. Like the covers in the Silver Age are the best. And that's probably why they don't want to do any of the covers I want them to do. Because I'm like, bro, we got to make it crazy. Like,
you're gonna give us the 1,000-pound Flash running on
yeah. But like I think it was 776, the Dr. Fate issue. I was straight
when he's reading the Flash.
Yeah. And I was like, we got to straight up do the stop. You know, the cover.
Yeah,
like,
iconic.
Wally's life depends on you. You know, like I want that type of like craziness when you read the cover, because I, you know, this is just my personal opinion, and I obviously don't have, these are not my characters and it's not my book, but like if I'm scanning the books shelf and I see Flash going like, hey, you know, or whatever, I'd be like, well, I got to check it out.
I think that's a valid point. I think that's correct.
Depends on it. Like, you know, it's the never ending story in me, you know, it's like, oh, I don't know, you got to do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I'll read one of the listener questions that we have here.
If it says, why do you suck? Please don't read it.
All right, I'll skip that one.
We'll skip that one.
I was going to start with that. Okay. This one, this is from Comics Germ. He sent a little bit of a message and a question that says, for the man himself, 774 is probably my favorite issue of your run so far, since it focuses on Wally and Irie. Being a new father, this issue meant a lot to me. And first off, I just want to thank you for that issue in particular. But as for my question, what was your favorite moment or issue to write so far?
His daughter's name is Irie, by the way. He recently had a
really?
daughter. Her name is Irie. Yep. He's a friend of the show.
That's amazing. Obviously, you know, because I have 2 daughters and it's huge. And I actually gave, I think, half the paycheck to my one daughter when I wrote the daddy-daughter dance. Never give an 8-year-old that much money.
Oh my God.
I mean, she's super responsible about it. Like she still hasn't paid it, but then I have a 5-year-old who's looking at me and she's like, listen, you know, she just came in today. She's like, when are we going to do our comic? And she's got like, but she's 5. So it's like the villains are like a jelly bean. And like, I'm like, oh, you know, but I don't even think she cares.
Maybe if it's the reverse jelly bean.
There you go. It was me all along. While, you know, my favorite thing, honestly, it's hard. I really do love doing this, and I love a lot of the issues. I have one coming up I'm just ecstatic about, but getting Kevin Maguire's art back on that issue for the first half it was preposterous. It was just, there's a moment where, like, you know, I had written about how he speed slaps Lex Luthor, and I just was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like there was this really like, this is not real, because this guy that I love his art when he does it. There was a great, like a Batgirl annual. I don't know if it was, I'm pretty sure it was him. It was either him or Amanda Connor, but like Batgirl's chasing Catwoman, and Catwoman knows Batgirl's a prude. So she goes into this like nudist building. And so Batgirl's like so intent on getting Catwoman, she takes off her clothes, and it's just expressions. It's like all the head, you know, and it's so funny. And that's what Kevin Maguire can sell so well. And I knew that issue is just going to be dependent upon, you know, some things I've always wanted to get off my chest, like the fact that the Riddler isn't telling riddles, he's just telling dumb jokes or whatever, you know.
When you flip the book and it's like, all right, this is going to be about Heroes in Crisis, and then you open and you're like, Super Friends
again. By the way, that was another, like the covers, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you see Barry like depressed on the ground, like I'm about to stop Wally from killing people, and then I open and I see Lex Luthor, and I'm like, oh, okay.
And it was like, the covers are like, you're spoiling what we're doing, you know, and we don't care. I was like, oh, come on. Anyways, that's when it got, that moment was like, that's when it got real to me. Mm-hmm. And I really love that. And then I really love the annual, because I got to write some stuff with Wally and Roy that I really liked. But then going forward, a lot of the one-off issues and some of the crazy stuff. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, that so far has been one of my favorites, but again, they're letting me do crazy stuff, so I can't really complain. And the search for Barry Allen, I'm like, okay, Josh, what do I have to do? He's like, this. I'm like, that's it. He's like, yes. I can do anything else. Yes. Are you sure?
You're gonna regret saying this, Josh.
Yes. I'm like, all right, Barry's got a hot rod. Like I was just like, I was just going, and then just like
Right.
it's stupid.
It's fun though.
Yeah, it's totally fun, and it's supposed to be fun. Like some of the formative runs, like I remember reading New Warriors was really big for me, and there's kind of a New Warriors like kind of a loosey-goosey team vibe that's really fun and out there. And I have a lot of favorite comics growing up, but I'm just having fun doing it, and I have too many threads. I feel like there's a ticking clock. It's like I got to get these threads done, man, because these other events keep encroaching on my threads.
Oh,
Yep, makes
that's
sense.
the struggle of being a DC writer, is
Right.
especially in the '90s, like when you had like 4 events in a year, and it's just like, how do you tell a story as a writer?
Yeah,
You gotta tie into 0 hour and
Yeah.
end of day and all that, and you're like, how do I do this?
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
I have more fan questions here, but JD or Drew, if you guys want to ask another
Yeah,
question.
Drew, jump in.
Yeah,
jump in on
anything
one.
you want.
Anything.
Except about the Tornado Twins. No more.
Except for that. You're also
Yeah.
muted. Just
Yeah.
Is there any DC book that you'd want to cross over with? Any character in particular or writer?
Yeah, I would love to do something with Wally and the Titans a little bit. I mean, like something with the Titans maybe. I think for me, it's about exploring more of the DC universe just through the lens of Wally West, and it's a good question. There's so many good writers right now. It's like, who would I also can't say too much because I get to, it's hard.
there's other writers that you're working with.
Yeah, there's other things
There's a
happening,
tightrope,
but
yeah.
also like I found myself originally Mr. Terrific. I wanted to be Ted Kord because I'm like a Ted Kord nut, right?
Mhm.
And
Okay.
but they were doing the blue and gold, and so they were like, hey, what about Mr. Terrific? And I was like, man, part of the joy is like trying to find my own little hook on Mr. Terrific, and so I'm in my book. He is becoming much more of a Buckaroo Banzai character. It's this guy that has like, he has tons of businesses. He has a Jiffy Lube, he has all this stuff. You don't even know how many businesses he has because he's super smart, and he uses it to like fund his, terrific empire and give him a little swagger and a little bit of emotion. And he's a character that I find myself thinking about, like, ooh, that would be really cool if I could do that with him. Strangely, that was out of left field. I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect to fall in love with Maxine Baker. Like, oh my gosh, I would love to do this. I was such a big fan of Paul Miotti and Connor's Power Girl. That was such a great run of comics, and I find myself thinking about like, oh, I think she'd be a cool character to mess with a little bit, because like, I love Nightwing, I love Tim Drake, I love all those guys, but there's people doing stuff with that stuff right now.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't. It's like, it's also like, it's a hard act to follow. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, hey Tom, can I take Nightwing for a little bit?
I know you got Eisner awarded stuff, but I got a few ideas up my sleeve.
Yeah, and it's always surprising me when I see Wally in other books. I'm like, oh, like, it's like, he's got eyeballs in this one or whatever. Like, Tom he messaged me about a little bit of what Wally would do in Nightwing. I was like, oh, that's very cool. But it is always interesting to me when he shows up someplace. And I'm always
I guess you have to kind of find characters that aren't in other books, like Kyle Rayner.
Or
something like that.
not to push you in any direction or another.
Funny,
but
no,
we're all
listen,
big Green Lantern
listen,
fans.
I have asked. I think they have plans for that whole. I mean, obviously they've already announced some of those plans,
right?
But like, I didn't realize how much love there was as the friendship of Kyle and Wally in a way.
It's loved.
the faster friends. That's a great little '90s Mark Waid, Ron Mars crossover. And it's weird because they were so cool in the '90s, and then mid 2000s they're there, and then all of a sudden they haven't interacted since like 2008.
Right. I mean, is that just because Wally was off the table for a bit?
Fair enough. Listen, they've both been through the ringer a little bit, but like,
I mean, same with Roy. It's like,
I'm glad you at least know about all this. Like, we do want him.
Yeah, and like after writing Roy in that annual, it's like, oh man, I have a pitch for Roy. I'd love to do this. I would love to get into the Arrow family too, but
cool.
I don't think they'll let me touch it. I think they're just like, no, he's fine with the Flash. He's sending 3-year
outlines. If you ever get a
outline.
Kyle Rayner crossover,
Yeah.
I mean, just sales will go up to 1 billion, I think.
I would love
X-Men
that.
1 who? No.
Yeah,
Flash and Green Lantern.
Yeah. I had a pitch for Green Lantern. I have a couple. I'm not gonna, because other people are doing other things, but I do have one particular pitch that it's my dream pitch. And literally every time I talk to Paul Kaminsky, I'm like, that pitch I sent you months ago, we should do that, right? And he's just like, oh, Jeremy, and it's like, and then I'll get, that pitch, like I am like a broken record with it.
One day it's got to happen. I think,
I hope, I mean,
if you keep pushing it,
you keep trying.
I think it's a matter of like, if more people, like if the Flash was super successful, they'd be like, yes, Jeremy, do your thing, but if it's like, they're like,
read between the lines here, people. Buy the Flash. Add it to your
buy the
list.
Flash. I'm just saying. I mean, it's weird because I didn't realize how individual sales, especially in comic books, because there's kind of you can see when you look at some of those things, they don't sell that much individually, but like the amount that they're pirated really does impact on what books are stay around or not stay around.
Mm-hmm.
And I by the way, I don't get anybody other's books. I have Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite, and so I'm always like 6 months behind. I'm like, Josh, so what's happening? Like, and he's like, you haven't bought my book? I'm like, they're $4 a book. Like I had kids, man.
Road to Dark Crisis, $5.99. I mean, I had to pick between that and lunch, and I picked Road to Dark Crisis for some reason.
So did too. We got it right here.
Yeah. So then I'll go to the comic book store, and then literally my wife's looking at me like, where are you going to put those comic books? Like they give me comps for my books, and I'm already like, oh shoot, like what am I going to do? What do I do with these? Like, I'll give them away to people, or like, I was like, maybe I should start like a cottage industry where I'm just selling my signature on these books online, for like slightly higher.
Jeremy _Adam17 on eBay seems to be making a lot of sales on Jeremy Adams signed books. There might be a coincidence there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've heard some people like they do the thing where they set up their like a booth, and they, these are, I mean, like artists who I always consider magic people, because they really are ridiculous, but you see them, they draw. Fernando gave me 2 penciled. I asked him, I was like, hey, can I have the original artwork for Dr. Fate pointing out to the only you can help the public, and the first appearance of Gold Beetle. And he sent those to me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, if I could have that ability just to draw. And then it's like, not only could you like give it to somebody and make their millennium, but you could also like sell it for gobs of money.
Crazy money.
Yeah.
As someone who's bought original art, crazy money.
And that's what my dad's like a really good artist, but he never really continued after Captain Atom. So I was always just kind of like, man, if I had that ability, I would just be throwing it in people's faces, walking around like the king of everything,
As someone who can barely draw a stick figure, I always say the same thing. Hunter's our artist on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Cool. He's the talented one here.
I'm trying to get into the industry right now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm getting there. So
well, like when we were sitting next to Jeff, and people would be like, they'd come up and they'd go, hey, could you sign this? But also, could you draw Batman? And I was like, and
that's good. I've seen some of the sketches.
That guy can draw. And
we're like Hawkman.
I'm like, what? And so me and Tim are just like, shut up. Like, we're not even inside of Jeff. Like, shut up.
They go to you now. Can you draw him? Can you draw Batman?
It's so. And then I see Tom King like post, like he just does stick figures. I'm like, yes.
I own a Tom King doodle. I love it so much.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't even do stick figures. No,
I got my Tom King doodle right after Heroes in Crisis, and when Nightwing got shot in the head, and I said, hey, could you draw Nightwing and Wally West for me? They're my 2 favorite characters. And he was like, he just said, I'm sorry. And I was like, that's okay.
Amazing.
It'll get better. And he drew it for me. It was great.
That's amazing.
He drew Wally exploding with Speed Force, and he drew Nightwing with a bullet in his head, and he said, Tom makes me sad, and then signed it, I'm sorry. So he's great. We love Tom.
You gotta have fun with it.
Exactly. We'll make one listener maybe be happy here. He asked Geek.mode, who is your favorite Reverse Flash? If you talk anything remotely about Zoom, I'll lose it.
Even just the word Zoom, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I guess it would be Thawne.
Dated him.
You know what's so funny is like, and people ask me about, because Flashpoint was a big deal, and to me that was like a real creative, flourish on the Flash after so many years. Like it's hard to find a new story in something that's been, run through
80 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I love the fact that it wasn't him. You know what I mean? It was like not really. It was just really kind of Barry in a way. But they asked me like, what are you gonna do with Reverse Flash? I'm not doing anything with Reverse Flash.
Oh.
No, I'm not. I mean, if I had a really good take, but it's been touched by like these kings. So like
it's hard to write Zoom because Jeff Johns wrote Blitz, and it's just like, how do you top that?
That's what I mean. Like, I mean, both of those. I wrote, so for the Lego Flash movie, I wrote the Lego Flash movie like on HBO Max.
I posted that a while ago, and I said most accurate Flash outside of comics. So there's something there.
But Dwight Schultz played Reverse Flash, and he's Murdoch from the A-Team, and I grew up on the A-Team, so I was just like, shut up, Murdoch is Reverse Flash. This is incredible. But yeah, I have no plans because I think he's a super cool character, but like, what am I gonna do?
It's daunting. It's definitely daunting. That's huge.
What I mean. I have to have like just like that great idea. And right now I'm so far in the future with stuff that I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it'll come.
So maybe when you're 95 and Jeff is like 105, you two could do Blitz to the Electric Boogaloo. Like,
no. I'm gonna do the worst version of Reverse Flash. That's my goal.
It wasn't
like,
me, Barry.
Really, really dumb, and it's just like everything about him is stupid.
Oh my god.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite Rogue then, Jeremy?
These are loaded questions, bro. I'm gonna have all these fans after me, because if I said Pied Piper because he's friends with Wally, then I feel like that's a safe place. But actually, I like Captain Cold a lot, and
that's the safe answer too. Everyone loves Captain Cold.
But I also like the absurdity of Captain Boomerang because there is absolutely no way he could be a threat. I've already mentioned this. It's like Jay. It's like the Captain Boomerang. What are you gonna do to this guy? Like, what are you gonna do? There's nothing. But his attitude, especially the Suicide Squad and stuff, was so funny and loudmouthy. It's hard. I don't know, man. I was
Listen, you did the arguably the best version of Rainbow Raider. I mean, he gets hit by a car. That was hilarious.
And I saw some people mad because it was like Pied Piper was in the background, but I was just like, remember, this thing's affecting everybody. It was even affecting Superman.
Right.
And it was always funny because people were upset too. They're like, it's not affecting Wally. That's stupid.
Nah, there it is.
And they were upset. And I was like, well, because there's a reason. Like, you gotta wait.
Right.
But nobody wants to wait.
Is that hard as a writer? Like when you see people like saying something that's like not even really correct online, and it's just like, I want to say something.
It's so hard. Somebody put. I shouldn't have done it. Usually, I'm very good at not responding.
You don't fall for bait.
Yeah. And I usually don't respond to anything. And somebody was like, "Oh, Jeremy forced them to put Flash in the War for Earth 3. He probably forced them to do this." I'm like,
not even close.
What? Like, I'm like, first of all, I don't get to force anybody to do anything in this arena. And then second of all, they're like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, yes, I can do that, because I don't want you to fire me. Like that's the name of the game here. I want to keep writing the Flash.
After all of us have been on Instagram for years, comic book Instagram for years, and it's great. I mean, comic book Instagram is I've met some great friends that I started a podcast with, but like there's so many comments sometimes that I'm just like, oh, God, I don't have time.
And it's also so many like upset about something that you're like, just wait till it's done. Like wait till that arc's done, and then lodge your complaint. But don't tag the creator on the complaint.
That's
and it's hard because I mean it's really hard. It's as somebody that you create because you want people, not only you just create because you have to create, but you also want people to enjoy it.
Right.
And it's funny because it's like I find this with myself. It's like I'll get 99 out of 100 like great people. Oh, this is great. and then I'll get that one person's like meh, and I'm like, yeah. And like there was a comment recently, it was like and it was like a continuity thing, and it was just because DC continuity is kind of in flux, you know, and it was kind of like, but if I find out about that, I generally I'll try to make that a plot point. Like I'll try to figure out how to make it make sense, because that's, as a nerd that grew up with comic books, I was constantly doing that. You know, it was like the difference when I was watching, you know, Star Wars, between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and then Empire Strikes Back and Jedi, the conjecture that happened between that without having social media. And then after that, you're like, so I bet Boba Fett gets out this way. Like you're trying to figure out how to make it work. And I do that with comic books. So like just recently, there was a weird continuity area where in the Road to Dark Crisis, it's like,
I was about to ask that.
Statue of the Flash, right? And it has the Flash, but then it says Barry Allen on the next page. But then on the digital copy, it's different too. And I'm like, and I tweeted, I was like, I think I have to make this a plot point in something. Like, you know, like, I have to fix it. I have to fix this in my brain. And because if I'm reading that as a fan, I'm like, I gotta address it. I gotta fix it. You know, like it's like when you watch Lost, you're like, this better make sense. You know,
Lost.
Because a lot of people were talking about like, is Barry Allen's identity public now? Like I know he's dead, but
it's crazy how like either a mistake or like a, you know, a little one panel thing could start a whole like news, like everyone's asking me like, wait, when did they make? And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. And so as what I feel like is like I'm the caretaker of the character, and like I want people to have a good reading experience. I'm very logical, and I'm very like I want it to be fun, but I also want it to make sense within the context of the Flash. Mm-hmm. So all those like little things, I'm kind of logging in my head, and I'm like, I gotta fix this, you know. And I also don't know, you know, people are like, does everybody? Because there was a time where obviously everybody knew Wally's name.
Starting in Jeff's run, and then it ended in Jeff's run.
Right, and I don't. I have to think, for me as a writer. B, do I tell people what I think yet, or can I tell people what I think and how I think it happened? That to me is more interesting. Yeah, like, you know, because I think we're in a unique place in DC Comics where it's like no one's really codified anything in a way, right? There hasn't been a like, this is what the universe really is after like death metal or whatever. Like we don't necessarily know. Like Ace is there, but how is he there? You know, like there's some of that stuff that I feel like with the Flash especially, and I feel like one of the reasons that makes this character so special is he's a character that's uniquely designed to kind of address a lot of that, because he's so fast, and because he can, you know, obviously I pushed in the idea that the Speed Force, you know, when you see that Grant Morrison map of the DC universe, you've seen it, and it's like the Speed Force touches everything, and it is this kind of thing that operates everywhere. And if he's able to go in it and touched by it, and other speedsters are touched by it, I think there's a lot of cool like stories you could tell there, but it makes them impossibly powerful in a way too. But that's probably why Ira is able to, you know, portal to where his dad is. You know, Jay and Ira. I mean, which one of them has it? Depends. I mean, you know, when I'm like trying to think in my head, I'm like, wait, it's you know, but the fact is, I think that there's something to that as well that allows us to examine the DC universe and actually where the continuity lies through the eyes of the speedster. And I have thoughts on that. And I was about never mind.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you said you got like 3 years, maybe 100 years worth of plans for the Flash. I gotta assume that includes Flash 800, which I'm not sure what legacy issue we're on right now. What are we at, like 780 something?
Yeah, I mean, I have my pitch for what that is, and I think everybody would really love it if they let me do it, but I don't know if they're gonna let me do it. I'm really pushing for it because I actually think it will. I think it's a no-brainer. In a way, but I actually kind of stopped my brain at 800 because I was like, I can't keep thinking up ideas. I was going a little insane. Like I can't keep doing that because I also and Jeff and everybody was like, don't do that to yourself, because you could literally not be on the book tomorrow and it'll go crazy.
Well, and that's the crazy thing about comics, right? It's
Yeah.
giveth and taketh. You know, it comes and goes.
Yeah. So it's like if I let my head go down and start building all these other stories, then I would go nuts.
Then it would probably hurt worse, actually, if you had like, because you're like, oh man, I would have done this and this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you'd be returning for an interview and been like, give us all the cool pitches. It would have been like, yo, that's so cool.
This is what I would have done. I mean, but like I said, I'm already very close to that. So, you know, I know we're going to do a big Flash stuff at the beginning of next year. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I think it's a really interesting story point that Flash hasn't really talked about, or it hasn't really done. And I'm really excited about it. And then I know exactly what the arc is after that gets to 800. And then I'm stopping in my brain until they tell me that, as we get closer, you know, and it looks like, oh, this is really happening, then I'll be able to go, okay, you know, brain, do some weirdo stuff. I think. Maybe I'll be like, I don't want to do it anymore. You know, I mean, my goal would always been like, I always thought I would love to do a Flash book, and I would either love to do a Flash book and then like 1 week, and then like a Flash family book the second week, or some sort of switch off anthologies like Wally Berry, you know, whatever. But I think if you had a Flash family book where you could do a book with Jay in World War II, like, you know, you could do the Tornado Twins, or you could do, you know, whatever it is, but you could just do a Flash story that had a speedster at the center of it every other, you know, once a month would be to me. But again, it's all about sales. Like, it's like, oh, the Flash is selling gangbusters, people love it, let's do another Flash book.
Right.
It's like how many Batman books are on right now, or like Detective
Right.
Comics is what sometimes it feels like a Bat Family book, sometimes it doesn't. So
yeah, I mean, and that's all the way up the corporate ladder, because in animation there's always like, and sadly they get proved out. It's like, hey, I would love to do this, or I'd love to. That's why we did these kind of cool DC showcase shorts. Like I helped with a DC Ted Cord one, and there was like a House of Mystery and stuff, and we did those little ones because nobody will sign off on a big one. It's like, if it doesn't have Batman or Superman, there's this prevailing thought that like no one will buy it.
Justice League Dark featuring Batman.
Right. And so what happens is they end up taking a risk once in a while, and it never pans out.
Right.
Yeah,
And
there's a
like,
Green Lantern movie that's about to drop here, I believe.
Yeah, that was written by Ernie Altbacker, who's a great writer, and he's done a lot of the Justice League Dark stuff, and he along with John Semper, and I know a little bit about it, and it's going to be really cool. And that's the other thing too. It's like people get down on the previews, and it's like, oh, you don't even know. I have 2 movies coming out this year, one in the DC animated space that I think people are going to lose their minds for, and then another one which I'm excited about too. So that's going to be great.
I know you can't say what it is, but does it involve Batman or Superman?
I mean,
Can't say.
Oh man, I almost got killed. You don't even know. Talk about Reverse Flash. He works for the press office at Warner Brothers, and like, if I would have said something, I would have been
a red dot on your head suddenly.
Fair enough.
I would have had that sword right through the chest.
Thomas Wayne.
Oh yeah, Thomas Wayne style. Flashpoint. Never stand still on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry.
You don't understand. Like I said, I've been living with the anxiety of not being able to talk about it for a long time. So
yeah, of course, yeah, and like if we have asked questions that you can't answer, that like totally understandable. Like, is Barry coming back?
What? I mean, we're searching,
who's Barry?
we're searching for him.
Yeah, and then he's coming back, right? So we'll find out.
We'll find out, won't we?
I mean, the next arc is called The Search for Barry Allen, so maybe they're searching for him, maybe looking, you know.
That'd be great. At the end, it's just like,
Maybe we didn't find him. Oh well.
See ya.
Back to my life.
Yeah.
But focusing on Wally. Do you guys have any more questions? I know we've had you for about an hour now, so if you have to leave,
We're
or
rambling. Sorry.
I got one more. I don't know if Drew's got any.
Yeah, I got one more. You want to go first?
Drew's
Go
gonna
ahead,
give me a
Drew,
hard
go
one.
ahead,
Go ahead, Drew. I'm ready.
Um, I was actually going to ask about the Justice Society animated movie because we all watched it recently,
I watched
and
it today.
I just wanted to know, were you already writing Flash before that, or was that like after?
No, that was after. No,
Yeah.
Flash was after Justice Society. I was working
Okay.
at Supernatural at the time, and so Megan and I were tapped to do that, and they kind of had a semi new universe in the animation world, and so it was really, I mean, it's really cool because we had that like Fleischer almost Superman near the spoilers,
Yeah.
you know, and
That surprised me. I was
it was
very surprised with that.
well, you know what's funny about it, one of the things I love, Butch Ludick, who was one of the guys on Batman the Animated Series, and he's done tons of stuff. He's an incredible guy, but he's this big guy who's always just like, okay, whatever, like, and he has this like dour face. And we turned in this script. I think we turned in the outline. I think it was the outline, and we thought it was going to be kind of a PG rated movie. And so we were treating the Nazis kind of like, oh, you know, the Flash would rope them up and, you know, knock them on the head or whatever. And we'd start getting these notes that were like, this is war. Why are you treating the Nazis so good? And then in like the next page would be like, is your family German? You know, and it'd be like, you know, I need you to kill some Nazis. Like,
I
it was like,
need Wonder Woman to kick a door into a guy.
Yeah. So it was a delightful little jaunt into that world.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got something that'll be set in the 80s, which is fun. I did the 70s with Batman Soul of the Dragon. If you haven't seen that, that's my favorite thing I've done. And mainly because I'm a martial art nerd too. So it was like Michael Jai White, Mark Dacascos, Kelly Hu, and it was like when I met Mark
Batman.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, Mark Dacascos, I'm like a really big fan. He's like, oh, thanks. I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. Let me rattle off your first 10 movies and why I like them. You know, it was just
Oh my God. My question was going to be, well, actually in the decades, you know, if you want to slip into the 60s and you want to throw a Flash period piece, that'd be cool. But, you know,
that would be good.
Anyway, my question was probably more in, you know, what would be your advice for, you know, aspiring creators? Obviously, you know, we've done some comics on our own and it's been pretty fun. And, you know, I think obviously the goal is like, you want to write your characters that you love, right? So, you know, as someone who's writing the Flash, what is your advice to get there? Because I've told Drew, like by Flash 900, I think we could get a story. So what do you think? What's your advice?
I mean, I came at it so backwards, right? Through film and television and stuff. But what I do know from what people have told me is that, and you can see it, there's such a bustling independent comic scene. I do know that the editors are constantly looking at that stuff. And so whether you can, I mean, you're doing the right things. You're like having a podcast, you're meeting creators, you're putting out your own stuff. And that eventually, weirdly, like the networking of what you're doing is essentially the big deal. Like I always say, Neil Gaiman gives this great commencement speech about, you know, about how he got into the industry. And he always says you have to be two of these three things. He says you have to be really good or on time or great to work with. And like my variation is I can't tell if I'm very good, because I've had people hire me because they like the way I write action. And I've had people tell me my dialogue's terrible. And then I've had people go, I love your dialogue. I think your action's crap. Like it's so subjective what people like. I only can control the controllables, which is I'm going to be the nicest person you will ever work with. And I will turn things not only in on time, I'll turn it in probably earlier than I should. And that's provided me, I have a reputation of being the fastest writer in Hollywood, which we all think is really hilarious since I'm writing the Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
And that was like years before I was doing the Flash. It was like, I remember Jim Krieg, who's like my mentor boss, called me up and he's like, if I had a Justice League, see, you're the Flash, because all you do is just turn things in so quick, you know. And I think it's also personality wise, but you know, that you can only control the controllables, which is you're going to be great, you're going to be nice to work with, you're going to get things in on time, and then you just have to keep creating. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been out here and somebody's like, oh, I'm a screenwriter, and I'll be like, oh really, can I read something? So I'm halfway through, and it's like they've been out here for 15 years, and you're like,
Oof.
you're halfway through, the one screenplay is not going to do it for you. You know, you have to be realistic. You have to keep writing, and you have to keep putting yourself out there. The big thing that was motivating for me was I had read Stephen King's book on writing, which I think is the tome of tomes when it comes to writing. And I had found out that Rod Serling from Twilight Zone had written something like 32 scripts before one was sold. And I was like, that's my goal. I'm going to write 32 scripts. And it didn't take me that long to get on Green Lantern, the animated series, but you know, some divine, there was
great
divine,
underrated show, by the way. I still
great.
love that to this day.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of divine intervention and a lot of grace and stuff in between, but so much of it I know is making sure that people know you're not crazy, which weirdly is a big deal because there are a lot of crazy people out there that want to be in this industry. and that you're doing good work. I mean, I honestly know people that do independent comics, and that is the way they get in. Or in television, there are a lot of playwrights that get jobs on television shows. Playwrights, they're just like, I wrote this play. It's like, oh, okay, you know. So I
read it.
Yeah, exactly. You're in. It's like, what?
Yeah.
How did that happen? I need to write a play.
To sort of add for that, I don't know if you can confirm or not, but there's a documentary called Blueprint. Todd McFarlane was on there, and he said he got into comics he would submit, he would get declined, so he just the next week he would call them back, and he'd be like, okay, I did some different stuff this time. I did some different stuff. So that's kind of been my inspiration. Like I recently did a 24-page comic, and I've been saying that off to so many different people. Like, look what I did. Look what I did. Would you publish it? And so even if I get declined, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll try again next week. I'll call them back.
Right.
I literally was on the phone with people today being like, hey, did you get my submission?
I think that's what you have to do. And then it's like over at conventions, they have like editors that will do critiques and stuff. And, you know, like I said, I'm new to it, but like people are like, oh, why don't you do, there's a ton of indie comics I want to do, but again, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, do I try to get published with somebody? And it's not necessarily like I'm doing the Flash, but it doesn't mean. I just had an instance with an independent comic company that were like, we love this thing that you did, here's all the notes that we want you to change it. I was like, no, this is mine, I don't want to change it, you know. And so what do? Do you do a Kickstarter? And it's like, I've thought about it, but I don't think I would necessarily get enough people to want to fund it yet, because I'm still new, you know, and not enough people know about me. But there's a certain amount of like just building your reputation and getting it out there. And there are people that there's tons of people. I mean, whether it's Aftershock or AWA, I'm like, I'm just learning this business a little bit. And it's just like, oh man, and it just feels like the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, it just seems like it exploded. And it's no longer just the big two, it's just so many different books and so many crazy good books. So you know, and if the first one doesn't succeed, you do another one, and if that doesn't succeed, you do another one. Like at this point, I burned the ships a long time ago, and it's like I don't know what else to do. I have had so many highs, and then it's immediately like, well, are they hiring at 7-Eleven? Like I don't know. I don't know the answer. I wish I did, because like last year was a tough year, and thank goodness there were comic books, but they're not like high paying jobs, you know, and all you can do is persevere. I mean, I don't do any of it for the money. My second date with my wife, I was like, listen, I'm probably going to be poor the rest of my life. Like, just so you know.
Disclaimer, you know.
Yeah. By the way,
sign here, initial here.
Young gentlemen, don't do that. But I'm just saying, at the time I was dating people that really had expectations on me making a certain amount of money or something, and I was like,
oh, you work in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just like, listen, I
saw you write movies.
Yeah, and most of the people I know that work in this industry, it's like they have second jobs, and you do because you love it, and hopefully it resonates with people and they dig it. But that's the only thing you can do, is just keep doing it, you know.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. So thank you.
It makes me want to write more.
Yeah. I mean, but if you haven't read Stephen King's book, you know you have to. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out now after this. You know, because when you turn 95 and finally get off the Flash book, I think I want my turn.
You'll be there waiting. You'll be there waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you have to read. You have to read Stephen King's book.
What was the title again for that?
It's called On Writing. It's the greatest writing book ever. and it's like autobiography / how he goes about writing. Now, clarifying, he writes a novel like every month and a half, so take it with a grain of salt. Right. He is workmanlike, and I can never do that. I know for me, the way things changed was I was talking such a good game coming out in Hollywood. And at some point I was like, I have to actually create something. And I was like, what's the bare minimum amount of time that I can write every day? I was literally like, what could I actually do without being like, I can, like when you go to the gym, it's like, I'm going to work out. It's like, I need to know what could I, and I am such an ADD personality. I was like, I have to figure out what to do. And I was like, I will set a timer for an hour in the morning and I will write. And whether or not I write a page, whether I write 15, like lines, it doesn't matter, or nothing. I was like, what is it going to do? And I did that. The next thing I know, I had a script done easily in a month. And then I was like, holy crap. And I'm a big believer in incremental progress. And so it was like, I didn't put too much pressure on myself, but I knew I had to do something. There are talkers and doers, and like, I knew I had to just like the bare minimum. And I even say, like, if you can't do an hour, then do a half an hour. Just do just tiny bits, and it'll just accumulate. I mean, it will weirdly accumulate.
Yeah.
So
it's good advice.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. No, listen, I'm telling you, Stephen King's book, it'll get you pumped to write.
It's on, right?
And it'll make you really, really weirded out about adverbs to the point that like you have this crippling, like, I don't even know what an adverb is anymore. I'm completely English language and I.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. All right. You guys have any more last questions, or
that was a good outro for me. I like it.
Yeah, that was good.
Jeremy, this has been a lot of fun. You've given us a lot of insight. It's great to know that the Flash is in safe hands here, in good hands, and he better stay in your hands, or we never know what's going to happen to him.
Listen, if you buy the book, then I'm going to keep him safe. Like I said.
But no, it's good to I love to see they talk about like meet your heroes, meet the person who's writing the Flash, and it's nice to know that like a good guy's writing them. So that makes me very happy to see.
Three down.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I'm smiling ear to ear the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
If you would like to come back on again one day, that would be amazing. Like few months down the line, of course, when there's more to talk about, because oh my god, Barry's back or something like that.
Search for Barry.
I see how you're trying to trick me.
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah, it's like the Tornado Twins again. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I will definitely take you up on that.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll have to shoot you a message. But yeah, thank you so much again. And yeah,
awesome.
Definitely. And if you're listening on YouTube and all that stuff, if you could give us a subscribe, like, it all helps. Give Jeremy a follow on Instagram at SpaceKicker.
If you don't like this podcast, then somebody's gonna die in the Flash. No,
no. And that's a threat. That's a promise.
Oh yeah, the Reverse Flash is coming back. Zoom is coming back.
Hey, maybe that's a good thing.
Zoom's gonna put his hand through someone.
And yeah,
unless you leave a comment. But
that's
right. Thanks for listening, and check out a hero story every week. So
yeah, bye.
Woo.